I have the same chance of getting ranked on Google search results, even though I'm this one person with practically zero net worth. We beat Zoom and Square and Pinterest on that list.
You grew faster than Zoom during COVID.
18 months in the country, no connection, no capital, knowing no one. And I was like, yeah, this is the time I want to start my own company.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pick Now podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Munn. This week we have Shashank Shekhar on. Shashank is a FinTech entrepreneur, an entrepreneur of the year. You have, I think you've had an exit at this point, correct? I mean, we'll refer people,
yes.
Yes. We'll refer people to the show notes. You've got a book that is out that we'll talk about. We'll go deep into your entrepreneurial journey. Shashank, welcome to the Pick Now podcast.
This is great to be here, Jeff.
One of the things I like to ask people starting out is, was there a moment when you knew, oh, I'm an entrepreneur?
I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Let's put it that way. Since from the time I went to business school, so I grew up in India. I went to business school there, and not that before going to business school I knew that, but once I went there and studied about all the successful businesses and some which didn't do well, of course. But somehow about the ecosystem and being in the business school and learning about all of this made me almost kind of decide at that point in time is that I want to be an entrepreneur at some point in time. Of course, I had no idea when and where and how and all of that stuff. All the W's and H's were not answered in the business school.
Right.
After that, I went to work for GE Consumer Finance in India for a few years. Worked for a startup there as head of operations, and that's where I moved to the US as head of business for the same company. So that was kind of my early, I would say, foray, if not foray into entrepreneurship in the real sense, but at least in terms of thought. In fact, even me moving from a large company like GE to a very small startup was with this thought that I have now learned how big companies operate. Now I want to learn how small companies get built from scratch, so to say. So it was quite intentional in the way I moved my job from GE to there. That was all, so to say, queuing me up for eventually starting my own business at some point in time.
And was the move to the US by design too, or did that just like emerge as an opportunity for you?
That just happened. I was, as I said, for this startup, I was head of operations for them. Working in India office, and they had a business position open up in Mountain View, California, which is where the headquarters was. And they kept looking for months. They just couldn't find an ideal candidate. And they were like, oh, let's just move Shashank over. He already has been in the company for a couple of years. He knows the business. And so, no, that wasn't planned either when I joined the company or at any point afterwards. It was mostly out of, okay, he's probably the best fit for this job. So let's move him to the US.
And what year is this, Shashank?
This was 2006.
Okay. So some things are coming, right?
Yes.
So I've done some international travel. My son spent a year as an exchange student in Japan last year. I can't imagine, even if you know the company, the cultural shift that you had to go through. What was that like for you?
It was unique. I mean, so I've never kind of gone to any other foreign countries other than the ones which are close to India. So Nepal, Bhutan, some of the closer countries, so to say. So it was first what I would call a real international trip, even though I've been to a couple of countries close by. And that, along with the fact that at that time, US culturally was very different than India. It has changed quite a lot ever since. I mean, in the last 20 years, I think the geographical gap has minimized because India has become this global economy with frequent interaction with US, both in terms of culture and business and people, of course, moving back and forth and all of that. So we have seen that shift. But for me and my wife, I was recently married at that time.
Oh,
It
wow.
was, I shouldn't say a shock, because probably it was not a shock. It was just different. So it was
Yeah.
unique from that perspective. And much less at work actually than just interacting with people. The very first experience we had just landed in the US. Thankfully, my cousin was on a project in Southern California, so he offered me to stay in his apartment for a few months while we got settled. And the very first thing, I picked up the phone. So we had Domino's in India just opened then. I saw that, oh, Domino's is here. Let's order some pizza because we are hungry. We just took like a 24-hour flight or something.
Yeah.
And they were asking what toppings you want. And I said, I want capsicum in there. And they were like, what do you want again? They said capsicum. I'm like, that's English. They should understand it. What's wrong with them? And after trying it for 3 times, I just gave it up. I gave up. I said, just send whatever you want to send and everything. Only after days I realized that capsicum is just peppers here, and there's no word called capsicum in the US. You just call it red pepper and yellow pepper and green pepper. So experiences like that's been. Then after that we went to search for our first apartment when my cousin came back from his project. So he was like, time for you to find your own space. And I was looking at a space in San Jose at that time. And this guy who was showing us this space, he was like, oh, you have really good English. And I was like, nobody has ever told me that. I mean, this just comes naturally to me, to be told that you have really good English. I don't know, should I take it as a compliment or something? And I was a little cocky, and I told him, your English is not bad either. I'm not sure how it took that, but there are several stories like this. For example, growing up, we never saw lettuce. We had cabbage. So we went to the grocery store, we thought the lettuce was cabbage. And when we purchased it, thinking it was cabbage. Again, all of these things have changed quite a lot in the last couple of decades, because India has opened up so much, and today's kids see So my son and my brother's son, they're the same age, and you'll be surprised. My brother's son lives in India. My son, of course, lives here. And when they meet, they have exactly the same music taste. They have the same. Wow. They listen to the same rappers. They play the same video games. There's nothing to distinguish between the two of them, other than probably the accent in which they speak English. Yeah. It's so different than when we were growing up, because we only had like a couple of American shows that was on television at that time. So our exposure to the US was mostly a little bit of Hollywood movies, and that too only the blockbusters released in India. They didn't release like every movie that released here.
Well, even at the time in the US, we only had a few TV shows too.
Yeah. Right? So all of that was learning firsthand, but it was fun. I mean, we had come here thinking that we'll be here for a few years, and once that assignment was over, we'll probably go back. But it'll be a great experience for our resume, or a lot of course, US, especially Silicon Valley, where we had landed, there is so much of venture. It's just so entrepreneurial, the entire culture. Oh, yeah. I was like, that ecosystem is perfect for me to go back and start a company of my own. Maybe I'll learn a few things from being in that environment. But 20 years later, we're still here, of course.
Yeah. Now, did your wife have to change jobs and careers or anything like that? So she was kind of restarting as well.
She was, and thankfully
I came than you, because you at least were staying with the same company, right?
Correct, yeah. But thankfully, she stayed within the kind of the same industry. She worked for GE with me. That's where we met. And then she went on to work with Citibank at that time. And when she came here, she had to quit that job, of course. But she came here after a few months. She was able to get her first job at PayPal, which is a Silicon Valley company, because PayPal was looking for somebody who has consumer finance background, which she had plenty of at that point in time. So it wasn't exactly the same, because Citibank and GE were traditional consumer finance. PayPal is more, of course, technology, consumer finance. So slightly different, but kind of is still in the same field. So it all kind of worked out from that perspective.
So being in Silicon Valley, if you didn't have the entrepreneurial bent before, I'm sure that, it sounds like you had that spark already, and now you're going to the Bay Area, and it's like, okay, now I'm surrounded by this.
Yeah, it's an amazing ecosystem for somebody who and I don't have tech background from an education perspective. I went to, as I said, I actually studied English for my undergrad,
Hmm.
which is unique. Very few people growing up. Everybody in India wanted to be a doctor and engineer, when they still do probably, but little less now.
Yeah.
But I studied English. I just fell in love with Shakespeare in my school, where I had again I had the unique experience of studying original Shakespeare when I was in the seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th grade, which is unique to any student worldwide. I mean, they usually get to read like summaries or the modern English version of Shakespeare books.
Yeah.
We got to read the original Shakespeare book. So I just fell in love. I told my dad I just want to study English for my undergrad, which he hated because nobody wants you to study English, because what would you do of your career after that?
Right.
Uh, so,
That's
so
true in the US too.
yeah, it's true for anywhere. I mean, what do you
Yeah.
do with studying English? Maybe become a teacher or something. Maybe that was your best bet. Um, but after that, yeah, I worked in a sales role in a computer education company, and
Uh-huh.
I was doing well. My boss called me to the office one day and said, have you ever considered a professional sales career? I said, I thought this was professional sales career. He said, no, this is not. You need to go get some education if you want to
Uh-huh.
professionally do it. And I was like,
So,
what should I
so
be doing?
Shashank, you left the company that you. How long were you with the company that brought you here?
Oh, okay. So the funniest story, 2006 it was, late
Uh-huh.
2006, and we were a VC funded company. I mean, we were on the up, and then but it was in the mortgage space, and we all know what happened to the mortgage space and practically
Oh yeah.
any financial services space in 2007,
Yeah.
2008. So I was here probably less than a year when my boss, who was the president of the company at that time, called me into the office and said, hey, we'll have to shut this down. The VC funded
So they shut
has.
down the whole thing.
Yeah, so they shut down the entire operation,
Okay.
both the India and the US. Basically, the company shut down because we lost the VC funding at
Uh-huh.
that time. So I was 18 months in the country, practically knew no one other than my coworkers who were let go as well, and I
Wow.
had no relatives, no friends, literally no one in the US. Our closest relative was my wife's uncle in Canada, in Toronto at that time. That was my closest relative,
Wow.
and yeah, so that's what happened. So 18 months in the country, with no connection, no capital, knowing no one. And I was like, yeah, this is the time I want to start my own company, something that I've always wanted to do. And that was the start of Instamortgage. So
Wow. So then where's the conversation with the professional sales
that was
part with
immediately after my undergrad, before I went to business school. It was
oh,
his
okay.
idea that I should go to business school and get a professional
Gotcha.
degree if that's what
Gotcha.
I wanted to do.
So you're and it's funny because some of the biggest dot com or Silicon Valley successes come about from these like down market times. And so it sounds like, you're a smaller example of that, but you're an example of that.
Yeah, and the way I was seeing this is that I was still in the mortgage space, not of course
Uh-huh.
running my own company or originating loans or any of that stuff. But when that company shut down, first of all, my thing was like, look, I had almost kind of planned all this, like
Uh-huh.
from business school to working for a large company, then working for a small company. And all of this was to lead to the fact that I'll spend a few years in the US, learn everything that I can, and then go back and start my own company. And so the last part didn't probably pan out the way I
Uh-huh.
thought it would. And by then, I had also thought that I would have saved enough amount of money to kind of seed fund my business and all of that. And none of that happened because the company shut down almost immediately after I came here. But I was like, I put in all this effort and thought and planning behind it. Why not execute it? And the second thing was
Uh-huh.
that being part of the industry, I could see that a lot of the mayhem that was caused was mostly because of lack of education. A lot of
Mm,
these people who had signed on mortgage documents, not knowing what they were signing for. They
right.
weren't knowing that these loans will increase in the principal balance, what happens when the home prices. So there was just no education around mortgages at that point in time. It was more
Right.
like everybody wanted to make more money, and all of that worked for a while, and then it didn't. And my thing was
Well,
that,
yeah,
yes,
and on the documentation side, they
yes,
weren't really required to score these
yeah,
people for, well,
yeah,
what happens when the interest rate goes up? It was like,
yep,
no, we're going to score you at the teaser rate and you're fine, and we'll just pretend that thing isn't going
exactly.
to happen.
Yeah, and there was just no education into what kind of loan programs work for you, what is ideal for you, what does your risk profile look like. There was just no
Yeah,
effort made into that because all the parties were making so much money with this entire thing
exactly.
that was going on.
Yeah.
So that was my one thing, is that if I can build a smallish mortgage company, but it's built around education, around the
Uh,
fact that this is what you're signing up for, this is what home buying process looks like, these are the risks, these are your options. And I just started with that thought, is that, look, I don't know where this will go.
mhm.
Most people say, oh, I had the vision that this will become like the next big thing and all of that. I wouldn't lie, that wasn't the case. I did not see the future at that time, but my thing was that there is definitely a need for consumers to know more about what home buying looks like, not just when they're
Mhm.
buying the home, but the future of it. And if I can in some way contribute towards that, kind of building that education platform, so to say, there should be some business to get, and with a good cause as well. Is that
Mhm.
hopefully I can play that small role that this kind of a crisis never gets repeated in the U.S. And that was
Wow.
just a thought, and that was and I knew the business very well. As head of business, I knew the fundamentals of business very well. I had already
What
had
was your
almost.
business model going to be? Because like sitting in the education space, that's going to be a different business model than, just getting points for refinancing stuff over and over again.
Yeah, so I still had a license to do business. So
Mhm.
Instamortgage was the license, but for me, the way I saw it is that, and some of these aha came after struggling for a few months, of course, not right off the bat. But I was also seeing that the consumer preference in terms of consuming news
Uh-huh.
was shifting in the early 2009. If you think about it, we started having social media. Facebook was one of the big players that came in
Yeah.
a few months earlier. YouTube was getting popular. Most importantly, people were reading blogs, at least where I was sitting in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. People were
Hmm.
consuming a lot of their news not from newspapers and TV. And it wasn't an overnight shift, but you could see that shift happening, that people were reading the news, people were getting information more online. And that's where my aha moment came in, is that what if I started writing blogs on mortgages,
Ah,
and build that, when I say education platform, not the education itself monetizing, but because of the education, people will come and work with me because they will see me as an expert. At that point
right.
of time, I was I
An
was
expert
reading
who's actually looking out for them
who
instead
is
of
actually
a
looking out
lot
for
of the
them. Yeah.
industry, which was just like kind of cranking through people.
Yeah, I was reading Jeffrey Gitmer's book, which is I think it's called The Sales Bible, and in that book, Jeffrey says that if you want to be seen as an expert, of course, it's an old book, about 15, 20 years old, but I think it still holds valid. Is that if you want to be seen as an expert, you should either be writing or speaking. Of course, if you can
Hmm.
do both, that's great. But
Uh-huh.
you should be one of those two things, is because when you are on the stage and speaking, people automatically think you're an expert at that.
Uh-huh.
Similarly, if you're writing about a topic, people will automatically think you must know your stuff if you're writing about it. And so I started working on writing. Not that taking English in undergrad helps you with blog writing. I mean, those are two very different skills,
Well,
because
blogs didn't exist when you were
exactly, because some
taking
people
English. Yeah.
have said that to me. Of course, you can write because you were an English graduate. I said yes, but I was writing Shakespeare and Milton, not how to buy homes. Those are very different skills. Let me tell you. So anyway, I was actually one of the first, I think, 5 or 6 mortgage bloggers in 2009. That breed did not exist. And so I saw both as an opportunity and also a great leveler, in the sense that education, I don't have to be on TV or radio spending thousands of dollars, which I didn't have, but I can
Right.
take this inexpensive medium for like $50 a month. I can buy
Uh-huh.
a domain, host it, and can write whatever I want.
Uh-huh.
And
And then
so,
how did people find you?
yeah, great question. So that was great as an idea. First, I mean, if you'll read and I've kept some of those blogs, not some of practically all those blogs. How bad a writer I was to begin with. I cringe at some of those writings. I don't show those to my kids because I have a reputation to keep now.
Yeah, okay. So I got to tell you though, you
Uh,
know, it doesn't matter what you do, you have to start out bad at it. And I almost think there's just as much value to show your kids that, like, look how awful I was, but I applied myself day after day after day. And like almost 20 years later, here's where I am.
Yeah, but I give that reference to anything people want to do, right? They want to get fitter, they want to get better at writing or speaking or something. And the problem is, most people compare themselves with the people that they see on stage, or people who have been writing for 5 or 10 years, or people who have been working out for decades or whatever. And you're like, oh, this is what I want to become. And you try that for say a couple of months. You, of course, don't become them. And you give up. And so you're right. It's very important to see where they started, and because then you see, okay, if I'm already 10% better than where Shashank started, then chances are I'll probably end up 20-30% better than where he ended at, or where he's right now. But people try to see the finished products and then compare themselves with them as a beginner or as a novice.
Yeah, and then it's really easy to go to, well, I'll never be that.
Exactly. I can never be that, so why even try? Or I tried actually, but I just could not get there. It's because you don't see that getting here took 10 years or 5 years or 20 years or whatever it took. But going back to the story, so it was great as a concept. And I was like, okay, my audience sits in Silicon Valley, so they are more tech savvy. They are more they're more likely to read blog posts than say all of the theory that I had from my marketing class in the business school. Mm-hmm. But then I was writing 2 or 3 blogs a week, and months went by and nothing happened. Literally nothing happened. Yeah. 6 months later, Jeff, this is not a made up story at all. 6 months of writing 2 or 3 blog posts a week, struggling with it, understanding the idea behind it, understanding technology, all of that. So also teaching yourself all of that. And then I get my first phone call. Somebody said, oh, I read your blog post. I have a question about buying a home. And I almost fell off the chair. I'm like, somebody actually bought the that I've been writing for all these months. Yeah. And then just a few weeks later, somebody from Yahoo News calls saying that, hey, we are writing a story on mortgages, and we found your blog post online. Would you be willing to contribute, say, a few sentences to the post? So we do that. That goes well. And he's like, oh, I have other mortgage and real estate editors at Yahoo. Do you mind if I if I give your contact details to them? Because he thought I was like some big shot or something. And that I don't want my name to go out to everyone or something. And he was the first news editor I had ever spoken to. I said, no, please go ahead and do that. He was like, that'll be great. They're always looking at somebody to quote if a breaking news comes out or something at the very last second. You have been very prompt, and you are, of course, an expert at it. I said, yeah, let them have my contact. If they need anything, I'm happy to help them with that. So, yeah, it took literally months before getting that first call. That wasn't even the first client, but at least got the first call there. And thankfully, it only went north from there in terms of both media exposure and getting clients from those blog posts.
Wow. Yeah. I love the just the grit, the persistence, the willing to do it day after day after day, not knowing, when that moment's going to happen, but obviously having some faith that it would. Yes. How was your wife and your relationship with your wife as you were starting this venture?
She was okay. I mean, I owe a lot to her. Thankfully, she found that PayPal job at the right moment, because I had gone in the business saying that if I don't start making money in a year, I'll go and find a job. So I was also realistic. I mean, we had a young child by then, and though she was working and it paid the bills, but I mean, you can't just because you're passionate about something, you can't just keep following that passion forever without a monetary some kind of financial gain in the horizon. So thankfully, about a year, that's when I started blogging. I had some business coming in a few months after that, and though it wasn't anywhere close to the money that I was making as an employee, just say 12 or 18 months earlier, we could see that there's a progress to what. So first year I did.
Yeah, like I think I have a real thing here, right?
Yeah. First year I did 7 loans. Second year I think I did 21 or 26. So we could see that there is an improvement. And by year 3, I was, of course, making more than what I was making at my job before that. But yeah, she kept the faith. But I also, of course, saw that there is a trend. I'm seeing that more people are reading my blogs. I'm getting more calls. I'm getting more emails, even though not all of them translates into real money at the end of the day. Also, because home buying process is so long, just because you're getting calls and emails doesn't mean that you get that money 30 days later. Sometimes those people buy 6 months later or 9 months later. But you could see some traction, some velocity, and that gives you hope that this is going in the right direction.
How much of what you were doing was new mortgages versus refinancing, and how are those different from your perspective as a business owner?
So I picked a niche again. I think I used some of the theory that was taught to me in the business school, and I'm glad that I did. And the very first theory that I picked from my marketing class is that you go where your consumers are. And in this case, they were online. They were at social media. They were reading blogs. They were watching videos. And so I was creating videos for YouTube. I was on social media, mostly for business purposes. Actually, I was doing practically nothing. Post your child's photo and where you went to vacation on. Especially if you see my first 5 years of social media posts, 90% of them were in some way or the other trying to see how can I get business from this thing. It was very intentional. And similarly, again, in terms of blogs. So that was I would say rule number 1 is go where your consumers go. But also I was looking at the fact that when you get into a new business, you should establish a niche for yourselves. You can be a generalistic down the road when people know you and all that. You don't go in a business saying that I do everything. You're already new to the business, and then you're saying that you do everything. That doesn't work very well, or at least that's what I thought. And that's those are the business principles that I learned during my business school. So what I did was, again, I thought about my expertise, which was at that point of time has become education. And who needs more education? People who are buying their first homes. Not people who are refinancing. Not that they know everything about mortgages, but they need much less from an education perspective, because they've gone through the process, and it's not their house, which is potentially they can lose, or because worst case, what will happen if the refinance doesn't go through, then hopefully it'll happen next month or the month after. It's not the end of the world. Home buying is as much an emotional process. In fact, much more an emotional process than a financial process. And so from an education perspective, home buying made sense. Also, I was in Silicon Valley where a lot of immigrants were coming at that time. And so I could see that all the immigrants, what do? They buy their first home first. Of course, they're not refinancing because they're not homeowners yet. And 3, I thought that I understand them very well, being an immigrant myself. So it wasn't just looking at the market, but also looking at my own strength and then seeing, okay, I know how it works. I know about visas. I know about employment authorization document. I know about non-permanent residents.
Well, and know about the emotional journey that they've gone through. I also know
the emotional journey. So I thought that I was well suited for some. So I wasn't faking a profile that wasn't me, so to say. And all of that tied into me becoming that expert of first-time home buying. So much so that I had real estate agents in the market who won't send me other deals. But if they got a first-time home buyer, they'll be like, oh, let's send it to Shashank. He knows how to work with first-time home buyers. So I was locally started being known as an expert who understands first-time home buying better than anybody else.
And so were you doing anything kind of on the back end to make that process easier as well? Because, and tell me about that. And then how does that grow into what became Instamortgage?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of learning. So again, it's if you don't know your product, then you are, whatever you're selling, irrespective of what you're selling, you need to know your product inside out. And for me, the product was understanding everything about mortgages, about guidelines. And mortgage guidelines, for most people probably know it if they've gone through it, is literally thousands and thousands of pages of document from different agencies. And I was learning that cover to cover. I was a mortgage broker that was teaching underwriters that you got that decision wrong because that's not what the guidelines say. And so much so that one underwriter liked it so much, she sent me her own copy of that. So at that time, Fannie Mae used to send a printed, this thick underwriting book every year to the underwriters because there was no online copy or something. At the end of the year, she handed it to me saying that I've never come across anyone who knows the guidelines as much you do. You keep my copy, which was only meant for underwriters at that time. Nobody else was supposed to have it. She says, I'll give you my copy of this. But what I was doing is basically I was trying to learn all the programs that meant for first-time home buyers, so much so that there's a program called Federal Housing Administration Program, FHA. Bay Area never did that loan because FHA always had only about $300,000 of loan limit. It was meant for other areas. And so none of the loan officers or mortgage brokers who worked in the Bay Area knew anything about FHA loans because the price point was lower. Right. But during 2009 crisis, FHA increased its loan amount more than double overnight to $729,000. And with the home prices going down because of recession and financial crisis, now suddenly more than half the homes qualified for that loan. But nobody knew how to do those loans because they had never done it. And I remember one morning I got something in my email saying that somebody from HUD, which is the agency under which FHA is, somebody from HUD is coming, a HUD underwriter is coming to Irvine, which is in Southern California, and which was about 6.5, 7 hours drive for me to teach FHA underwriting. And I was... So I drive, it was in the afternoon. I remember I drove at 4:30 in the morning, about 7 hours straight, go there, take my full afternoon training, and then drive 7 hours back because I didn't have the money to pay for a hotel stay that night. I wasn't making enough. I was still learning. So I drive about 14 hours in one day, take a 4 hours class with this HUD underwriter to understand it. And now when I come back to the Bay Area, I'm teaching how to do FHA loans for buyers to real estate agents. And Jeff, they were in those classes, half the class, even though I wanted to teach real estate agents because then they will refer me business, half the class was filled with local loan officers from Wells Fargo and Bank of America and Chase because they wanted to learn how to do FHA loans.
You're teaching the bank how to do these loans.
I'm teaching the bank guys how to do these loans. But that's how I built the expertise in the market. It's like, I mean, this guy knows more about these things. Look, other loan officers are sitting in his class to learn from him how to do this. But yeah, I mean, you can't just project that, hey, this is my niche. This is what I want to focus on, but your product sucks. And in my case, that product was my understanding of the business, of the guidelines, of the programs, and I wanted to be the best at it.
Wow. I think it says so much about you and your drive that you were like, drive, no pun intended. You were literally driving like 14 hours to take a class and then coming back. Like how many people would have actually done that as opposed to like, well, eventually they'll do that training in the Bay Area.
Yeah. Half the people would have gotten that email. I mean, I wasn't on a special email list or something.
Yeah. You just saw it and you took it. And I think that's amazing. And that level of drive and desire and focus. And you were starting out, so you're hungry at that point too, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So then, okay, so you have this niche, you see this opportunity in FHA loans. What else that it eventually turns this? Because did you take any outside money building this? It didn't look like you. Maybe a little bit, but not much.
Nothing actually, completely 100%. Yeah, until the time we were acquired, which happened recently. I own 100% of the company. So no outside capital. So yeah, I mean, first 5-6 years was really built around me growing the business with a very small team of 3-4 people, 5 people at most. I went on to become one of the top 15 loan officers in the country, huge amount of production, everything. And at some point of time, I really started thinking about, one, how do we create more impact from a consumer perspective? And two, also in terms of purely entrepreneurial perspective, I was looking at what does the exit look like? If I run it like a solopreneur, so to say, with a couple of admin people to support me, then I run this business until the day I die, or I just stop doing something.
And if there are a lot of people who run lifestyle businesses, and that's fine, but it's a different thing.
Correct. And there's nothing wrong with lifestyle businesses. Mortgage is not a lifestyle business. It's a very hands-on business. You can't say no to business because if you say no to one person, then if you say, tell a real estate agent, hey, sorry, I can't take more clients, I'm like half retired, then none of the real estate agents will send you business.
Right. Now you're all retired.
If I tell Jeff, hey, don't send your friend to me, then none of their friends will come to you. So it's not as if, oh, I can do a little bit of business and get and do with it. So mortgage is either a full-time business or you don't do it. That's the kind of thing. Plus, it's so involved that things happen. Sometimes you need to handle some things in 5 minutes. You can be on a golf course playing golf while there's a fire going on at the closing table. You have to be switched on all the time. So it's not a lifestyle business. I mean, it can fund your lifestyle, but it's not that kind of business. And again, that was the entire purpose of setting a business, that one day you can exit it in some way or the other. And so at that point of time, I started looking into how do we grow the team. And again, growing the team is a challenge, is because the reason is that if you want to grow the team with good people, like good loan officers, good people, then they have many more options. There are thousands of companies in the country. It's not as if Instamortgage per se had again a niche from that perspective. And I started thinking about, okay, so I built this business very intentionally, very thoughtfully, in a way that worked well. What can we do to attract good people to Instamortgage? And I was like, the template is already there. It just needs to be addressed to a different audience. And from that point, I started working on educating the loan officers. So I was like, okay, I need to teach them how to grow their business. It's the same thing that I did with consumers. It was an education business before, it's an education business now. The only difference is that my audience is now the people I want to attract, which is the good loan officers out there. So then I started speaking at industry conferences. I started doing free webinars for them. I mean, there will be 1,000, 2,000 people attending these webinars. I started doing newsletters that will send out tips and tricks on how to do it. And all of this was free. None of this was, there were a lot of mortgage coaches who were charging money to coach these loan officers, but I was doing it for free, not completely altruistic again. I mean, I did want them to learn what I was doing, but I also wanted them to see that.
Identify the stars among them, so that then you could bring them in.
Exactly. So can come work with us. And that's how we started growing the company, not through paying recruiters to hire these people, not by paying huge amount of sign-on bonuses, but by just showing value in terms of what their business can be if they were part of Instamortgage, getting a mentor like me who was open to teach them everything that he knew. And they like that. Of course, I mean, there's so much more that goes into it. The industry is not always known to keep its promises. They came here, they saw that even if it meant losing money for me, I would always keep my promises. I would always deliver on what I committed. I would take their loans as if it's my loan in terms of putting my same time and attention into it. So all of that, of course, matters. All of that they see from a leadership perspective. And that's how it started growing to the point where we were on the Inc. 500 list twice as the fastest growing private companies in America. We made it to Financial Times, fastest growing mortgage company in Americas, both the entire continent, 2 continents actually, twice. And then I think the one that I like the most is we were the first and still the only mortgage company to be named on Deloitte FastTech 500 list. And the reason why we were the only and the first is Deloitte FastTech is not a mortgage company's list or a private company list. It's almost exclusively for Silicon Valley companies because you have only the technology company gets ranked on that. So first of all, we built a technology that was good enough to be even entered into the fray for that competition. And 2, we grew so much in the pandemic, the 2 years of pandemic, is that we beat Zoom and Square and Pinterest on that list. So we were higher.
Really? You grew faster than Zoom during COVID.
During pandemic. So that's my most bragging right that I get, I guess, is that I beat Zoom on Deloitte FastTech 500, not just becoming the first mortgage company to be on the list, but actually beating Zoom that year.
That's a great story because I had never heard of Zoom before COVID, and then Zoom was all over the place. Right?
It was the most well-known brand on the planet, and we beat them on that list. So that was a proud moment for us, for sure.
Wow! And then, how does that? You build this asset, right? And you've got this goal of an exit. How does that come about?
So again, and I think it's stages of the business. The first stage of the business was just me figuring out how to do this business almost on my own with through a couple of really good people who were part of my support team. Again, they worked as if it was their own company, so I owe a lot to them. That was the first phase. The second phase was, I wouldn't say even planning for exit, but thinking about what do I need to do to even bring about that exit, and that was growing the company per se. That's another, say, second stage of the company. Another, say, 5-6 years building to that, getting all these awards.
So first, do I have an idea that I can then, second phase, scale that idea into a real solid business?
Correct. Okay. And then third was again the same thing: is that why would someone acquire us? So like it's again at all points of time, I always question the fact that what value do you bring in that others don't, right? Otherwise, your hope becomes a strategy. Otherwise, it's like, let's hope somebody acquires us. Let's hope these loan officers join us. Let's hope that these customers come to me to get their mortgage. And that usually, as you know, I mean, you have coached so many businesses, you know that very well. That usually doesn't work very well. And
there's even a book called "Hope Is Not a Strategy."
Hope is not a strategy, exactly. So at every point, you need to be very intentional on what is your goal over the next few years and how do you build that. And so this last phase of the business, so to say, was about, okay, now how do we build this company in a way we have grown, which is there in for everyone to see, but how do we build it in a way where it becomes attractive, not just to a buyer, because of course you can sell a company at some price to someone, but where it's sold at a price which is way higher than say what say the industry average is, where it becomes valuable for the acquirer. So I wasn't just trying to sell it from a purpose of just selling it at an average industry price at which other companies sell at, but at a significantly higher multiple. That's what my goal was, is that I want to exit at a significantly higher multiple. And to build that, again, it comes back to the same thing, is that what unique value proposition or what's your value proposition looks like, where the acquirer looks like and says, wow, for this I'm willing to pay that extra dollar because it looks like a company that's built differently. And so we focused on 2 or 3 things really is what my focus was at that point in time. Technology was one big thing, because mortgage industry is usually behind in technology adoption. And even though I do not have a technology background from, say, an education perspective, meaning I didn't go to college and studied software engineering, I always had a tech mindset. It could also be because of course, all my friends were engineers being in Silicon Valley and Bay Area, but I still had a technology mindset. I was doing, for example, online applications in 2008 when every person who wanted to get a mortgage had to go to a branch or to a bank or to a mortgage company to fill up their loan application, while I was sending online link to my Silicon Valley consumers at 10 p.m. in the night saying, hey, fill it up whenever you want to. And they were like, I can't believe I can complete application at 12 a.m. if I want to, because everybody else that I spoke to, they said, hey, come to my office and then we will do it together, kind of a thing. So I always had that. And so I was like, okay, this is something that I like doing. And this is something that I think I'm good at. So we started focusing on technology. We built the first AI-powered digital human for mortgage industry in the world, actually, not just in the US. We stood that up in 2022 when almost nobody talked about AI back then. And
wow.
Yes.
So before ChatGPT really came out, you were doing an AI.
Yes, 2 to 3 years before. Yes. So it was a completely AI-powered digital human. I taught myself a ton of things to do myself. I didn't build the digital human, but a lot of back-end intelligence and knowledge base, I completely taught myself on how to do that with what was a very archaic technology back then. But I did that. But that focus remained. We worked through all of that. So operational efficiency, we wanted to show that we can close loans faster than industry average. Cost, at what cost we can originate. Again, we wanted to be about 30-40% lower. And build technology which was unique and first of its kind. So technology, operational efficiency, and cost effectiveness was the 3 pillars that I started looking at, because I was like, if we can get really good at with these 3 pillars, I bet we can find some buyer at some point in time will be interested in acquiring this for a higher price. So again,
Yeah, 'cause
very
they would
intentional.
rather
Yes,
buy you than try to build it themselves.
correct. That's what my thought process was. So yeah, again, that was, and then we were hit with very high interest rates from say 22 to 24, which didn't give me, as we discussed earlier, I didn't raise capital from outside, so I was investing the money that was coming into the business back into the business. But that threw me behind by at least a couple of years, because we started losing money because the market turned southward so quickly. It was the highest increase in mortgage rates in the shortest amount of time in the history of US. So it hit the entire industry. We were not aloof from that.
The number of transactions is what,
the number of transactions
out, and then you got no
dramatically. Exactly. So we didn't have that extra money that I was investing into to building some of these things. But I still kept building it with whatever little money that I had. Again, I had the faith that this will still work. This is the long-term play, and I should still keep at it, even though we didn't have the same amount of cash that, say, we had a couple of years back. And then, we started talking about a year back with this NASDAQ-listed public company. They're a tech player, and they want to build a home buying experience end to end from a platform perspective. So, as you rightly said, I mean, they could have just built a mortgage company from scratch, but they were like, okay, I mean, there is a company out there which has this solid infrastructure into everything. We would rather buy them and acquire them and pay a little extra for that than go through that process. So it's probably a couple of years late, because I thought that if everything was fine, we could have probably been acquired in say 24 or something. But in a game like this, you play a long game always, and so it doesn't matter as long as you find the right kind of buyer. And again, I was very, very clear that I do not want to be acquired by just another larger mortgage company, because then you lose a lot of culture, you lose a lot of operations, you lose most of what you have built, because they become the dominant partner, so to say, in this entire thing, and you just become a small player. While now we are part of something which is very, very exciting in terms of what we're building, and we get to keep company exactly the way it is. In fact, if anything, we'll get to grow it dramatically from where it is.
And so you're still actively involved in the company?
I'm still actively involved in the company, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I know you wrote a book. Like, what's the what's the transition from selling a mortgage tech, FinTech company to deciding, hey, I want to write a book, and I want to write it about AI? I mean, I know you have a little AI background, so that makes sense. But like, walk me through this process.
Yeah, so it's still related in the sense that I didn't write about something that I wasn't fully involved in. In fact, if anything, I started working on AI slightly earlier than some of the other people. But really, it came about because we as a company are 2 times Inc. 500 honorary, and this is an exclusive deal actually with the Inc. magazine. The book is an Inc. original book, which means. Okay. Yes, so it's actually published by Inc. And the book is on Inc.com and everything. So first of all, that was a big honor for Inc. to back me up in terms of saying that you are the right candidate to write a book, because they only back a few authors every year. It's literally just a handful of authors that they are published under the Inc. original banner, so to say. So first of all, that request that came in was, as I said, an honor, because I never thought I'll be an Inc. original author from that perspective. I have huge respect for a lot of people who have made that list. But then it was a question of, what do I write? How do I write? It's thankfully, I've done enough business writing by now. I've written a couple of books on the home buying side, but not on the business or the AI side. But again, thankfully, I was practicing it. So it was more about, again, going back into how was it when on day one for me, and what did I learn, and how did I teach myself, and really, so I wanted to write a book not about the philosophies and the principles and the potentials of AI, which is where most of the book is. It tells you the big picture about what AI is and what it can do, and I wanted to write something for people like me, people who are in the sales space, marketing space, running maybe a small company, and they want to use AI more as a coach, as a co-pilot to gain more productivity, to gain more business. And I was like, what did I do, and how did it work for me? And so the book is more I would say more a workbook, a guide kind of a thing. There is very little theory in the book. Most of it is real prompts, real results, real tools, step-by-step instructions. So you will see very little concepts and principles and theories. More, it's a very hands-on book, which is what I wanted to write. It's like, look, this is what I have tried. This is how it has worked for me, and I'm giving you literally word by word in this book for you to try and hopefully get the same kind of benefits that I did.
So give us an example of how someone might use this book.
Yeah, so I have, there are several examples. There are probably 100 examples. I've also taken a lot of case studies from slightly larger companies so that you can get inspiration from what they were able to achieve. So there's, again, so even the case studies are from, they're all real. Again, nothing is made up and everything. But we talk about, for example, let me take one example, I guess, is about, say, if you are in a sales role and you want to get better at it, for example. So let's take that example. And so we talk about in the book, I talk about how you can go from using AI as, say, a sales coach from that perspective. We built actually Insta AI platform for our own loan officers. Again, so a lot of it comes from my own learning, where what we did was that we created personas of all kinds of buyers and sellers my loan officers were working with. So one persona is somebody who is young and first-time home buyer, somebody who's older, an investor client, somebody who's retired and wants, say, maybe a reverse mortgage. So we built these different personas, and you could do role play with these personas. So I can talk to Jeff, who wants to buy an investment property, but I can talk to Shashank, who wants to, say, buy his first home. But then I can talk to Susie, who is probably a retired teacher and wants a reverse. And these personas talked almost exactly like what they would talk in real world. And my loan officers' skill levels started improving, and they were giving us feedback, or giving me feedback, is that now when I get on a call with these customers, I'm better prepared about their objections, about their challenges, about their ambitions, about what they want to do in a home buying process. And so for example, that's the example that I give in the book, is that if you want to get better at it, and you don't have to, of course, use our tool. Our tool was created for our internal loan officers. But there are large language models. How can you use Claude for that? How can you use ChatGPT for that? And can create those personas, can role play with this. Of course, they are voice enabled now. You can upload, if you have a transcript or a conversation that you had and you were able to record it, of course, with client's permission, you can upload that, learn from it, see where you went wrong, and then next time, hopefully not repeat that mistake. And that can make you dramatically better just in a few weeks if you're very diligent about it, which is
faster than if you had to wait for real client conversations and make real mistakes on real people, right?
Yeah, that's how we learn, of course.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And so, if you want to get into some of the more philosophical stuff, I mean, so AI is changing so rapidly. As you think about some of these models and building tools with them, do you have a preference at this point, or do you think they're all good for certain things, or do you tend to gravitate toward one for one thing and one for another? Like, what's your own personal AI philosophy at this point?
Yeah, first of all, I see AI as a parallel to what, say, blogging was for me in 2009. I tend to draw parallels in my life and in my careers all the time. As I said, when I was trying to get consumers, it was like, what value do I bring? When I was trying to get loan officers join me, again, what value do I bring to the table? When I was trying to find an acquirer, what value do you bring? It's similarly, blogging for me, of course, there was consumer preference changing, but I also saw that as a great leveler from the perspective that I have the same chance of getting ranked on Google search results as, say, Rocket has, or Wells Fargo has, or Bank of America has. Even though I'm this one person with practically zero net worth and they have billions of dollars, I have the same chance. If I write a good blog post, search engine optimize it, chances of me ranking is as good as theirs. So that's a great leveler from a technology perspective. Later on, of course, it became more expensive, more tools, all of that stuff. Similarly, if you look at AI now, companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, they have done the work of building the large language model for you, so to say. I mean, that requires billions of dollars to build. But what you can build on top of it, again, is a great leveler. You can build something almost as good as say, somebody with much deeper pocket in your industry can build. because the core infrastructure has been built by them. Now, I have built things off of OpenAI. I have built things off of Anthropic, which is Claude, by the way, for people, if people didn't know that. Off late, Claude has become more my favorite tool to go to. I do more work on Claude. It's also because Claude launched something at the beginning of this year in January called Claude Cowork, which is a more agentic AI platform, meaning, and I in my book, my last chapter is on agentic AI. But what Claude Cowork does is that, again, depending on how comfortable you are in terms of giving what kind of access you want to give it to, you can only give it access, say, to one folder or something. But Claude Cowork can actually do the work for you. So in a chat-based format like ChatGPT, or if you're just on the Claude chat, you are chatting back and forth. It's not really doing much for you other than it still gives you content and all of that. Claude Cowork actually does the work. So you can actually say, pick up this file from this folder, make these changes to it, then drop it back there, or create something new to it. You can give it tasks like every morning, scour the web for me and give me the top 5 things from my industry that I should be aware of. So these are the things that they're doing it while you are still asleep. It can manage your email, respond to emails, manage your calendars. Again, for you need to be comfortable with what kind of access you want to. But I think Anthropic is doing even their Claude Code, which is, again, I'm not a coder. I don't have software engineering background, but I'm working on platforms like Lovable and Replit and Claude Code, where you need to know almost no coding to be able to build stuff just by giving them prompts. So for me, at the stage where I am, I think Claude is doing some really, really good work, and I'll probably stick to them. But for most people, I don't think there is a huge difference between what you can do on ChatGPT or Claude, or even Perplexity that I used for a lot of my research during writing the book.
Yeah, I think, well, one of the things that I think is really interesting about you, Shashank, is you started writing blogs before most people really knew what a blog was. And now you started, you built an AI before most people even knew what AI was. So it's like you have this ability, focus, I don't know what to kind of see things before the masses see them and to use them in a way that helps you build things.
Yes, but also not telling myself is that I am not capable of doing that, in the sense that, I'm not a business writer, I can't write blogs, or I'm not a coder or software engineer and I can't do anything with AI. So that's another thing I think, and that's probably more important than the other two things, which is because some people be like, I can't see what's coming in the future. Shashank maybe sees it, but that's maybe his skill. I can't learn that skill, so to say. But one thing that you can is that you don't need to limit yourself with the fact that I don't have that skill, especially sitting in a year like 2026, when most people with reasonable IQ can teach themselves almost anything that they want to. I mean, I taught myself AI by YouTube videos and Coursera courses and reading blogs and white papers and everything. And
now AI has gotten good enough.
Now AI can teach you everything.
AI teach you how to use AI.
Exactly. Now AI can like when I was trying to install Claude Cowork, it gave me an error. And I literally asked Claude itself, saying, I'm getting an error, how to fix that? And it told me how to fix it. So now that's what I'm saying. Sitting in this day and age, you shouldn't tell yourself is that this is a skill I'm not good at. And in fact, I have an entire chapter in the book just on upskilling, like something you're not good at, and how do you build that skill almost from scratch using AI as your help or as your coach.
Yeah, fantastic. So if you wanted to give, so one thing that you identified was just this limiting belief that a lot of people have that gets in their way. It's like, I could never do that. Some version of that, right? And you said, that's not a valid excuse in this day and age, right? Of course you can do that. So what's one other thing that you would say for someone who's listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, and has this great idea and they're holding themselves back in some way? Like, what's the thing that you would say, no, here's why you should go for this?
Yeah, so first of all, getting over limited belief gets you to start doing something. But it's the resilience that keeps you doing something. I have never done anything in my life worth doing which happened purely by luck and happened very quickly. Nothing. And I can go back to literally when I was a child, but I don't have to give my entire life story. But two things. One is only when you go over limiting belief, even going to the business school. I mean, I was an English undergrad, and business school they were teaching econ and computer science and math and everything that. Literally, Jeff, I'll tell you, 3 weeks into my business school, I'm like, I'm going to quit. I don't understand a word of what the professors are saying. And I literally did not understand a word for almost all the classes other than maybe marketing, which was mostly English. And I was like, I need to quit. I mean, what's the point of being here 2 years? I'm going to fail every subject. But then so first of all, you go over limiting belief to get into something. But then once you are there and whatever you're building or whatever you're creating or whatever you're learning, then it's your resilience. Again, same thing. You're trying to teach yourself something, and you will go through phases when you'll be like, what am I doing? I'm not understanding a word of what they're saying. But you keep doing it, and then you'll realize, again, funniest story, I started playing chess a few months back.
Oh, wow. I've always wanted to learn, and I've always been it's like, I'm never going to figure this out.
Yeah. I play my first game, a 9-year-old beats me really bad, which is, by the way, not a bad thing. 9-year-olds these days are brilliant at chess. So there's nothing bad at it. But I mean, 6 months later, I'm rated 1700 on Lichess, which is better than 70% of people, by the way, on the platform.
Yeah.
Which is, again, it's not as if. So first of all, you get over your limiting belief that, oh, you're too old to learn chess. So I had to get over that, and they're like, okay, I'll play it. Second, you go through embarrassment of the 9-year-olds and the 8-year-olds beating you every now and then, and you play chess, and you're like, well, that mistake was like, oh, even the 6-year-old can figure out that was a bad mistake. So you get over that. You go through learning. You go through resilience. So you'll be surprised how templated all of this is. It's just a matter of keeping at it. And I told you my entire, like, every 5-year journey, so to say, in the business, or how I was here, and you would probably see it's almost the same. It's almost the same story. Like, you go over the limiting belief first to start on something, and then be resilient enough to keep at it until you're successful. And that is not to say that you'll be successful at everything, but which is fine. I mean, if you try 10 things and you're successful at 7, that's a really good life for most people, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea of just persistence, and you can make a psychological change almost instantaneously. I call it an identity shift, where it's like, oh no, I am the person who has healthy habits, but that doesn't mean you're instantly going to, like, suddenly be in good shape and you'll have lost the weight and your muscles will look good and whatever. It's like you actually have to go through the process in the physical world of becoming all that. And I think the same thing is with developing a skill, with growing a company. It takes time and persistence. And I love that you've been able to exemplify all of that in what you've created. So thank you for this conversation and for being so willing to go deep. How do people find the book in the usual places? Amazon, etc. The Inc. website, probably.
Yeah, I don't think it is selling the book. I don't remember if it is. But all the usual places, everywhere you buy books: Amazon, Barnes Noble, Goodreads, practically anywhere. Some stores as well, but these days not too many people buy at stores. But so please go to Amazon.com, search for Let AI Be Your Coach, and if you get a copy, I would love your feedback on how you like the book.
And Shashank, what are the best ways for people to keep tabs on what you're up to or reach out to you?
LinkedIn is the best place for me. I'm very active there. So again, search for me, send connect request if you want to, or follow me, and for all things exciting about AI and home buying and FinTech and all of that. If those are things that you're interested in, and entrepreneurship at a broader level, then happy to connect with anyone.
All right. Shashank Shekhar, thank you so much for being a guest on the Pick Now podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week with another great conversation. Take care.